Credit was invented so people could buy homes. Americans looked at that and said, "Cool, let's use it for emotional support, petty revenge, and decisions that should require a guardian signature." In this video, 49 real loan stories that start as, "I have an idea," and end as, "Please don't call my accountant." Watch until the end. One of these should be illegal. 1. Imagine walking into a bank, sitting across from a loan officer in a cheap suit, and keeping a straight face while asking for venture capital to start a high-stakes snail racing league. Someone actually did this. The money didn't go to Ferraris or racehorses. It was blown on a custom-built miniature track, aerodynamic racing shells painted with flames, and premium organic lettuce to fuel the athletes. I assume he expected the betting world to go wild, but the return on investment was, predictably, excruciatingly sluggish. The only thing that moved faster than the snails was his credit score plummeting into the absolute abyss. 2. Number 2 is proof that some people have too much access to credit and not enough supervision. Of all the cosmetic procedures to finance, breast implants for a pig has to be the undisputed champion of bad ideas. You heard me correctly. A loan was approved to give a farm animal a boob job. This wasn't a medical necessity or some weird agricultural experiment. It was purely aesthetic. The goal was to make their prize sow the most voluptuous contestant at the county fair. I have so many questions that I don't want answered, but mostly I just feel bad for the repo man who eventually had to deal with that collateral. 3. If you ever feel like you've made a stupid purchase, just remember the guy who took out a loan for over $80,000 to buy a historically verified artifact, Napoleon Bonaparte's personal iPod. Yes, the French emperor who died in 1821 apparently loved jamming out to early 2000s pop hits. The borrower was totally convinced by the seller's impeccable documentation, which I assume was written in crayon on a napkin. The absolute cherry on top of this financial disaster? After spending nearly 6 figures on a piece of plastic, the charging cable wasn't even included. That's just bad customer service. 4. We all suffer from main character syndrome, occasionally, but this guy financed it. He took out a massive loan to hire a full 80-piece symphony orchestra to follow him around 24/7. Suddenly, buttering toast became a soaring, triumphant overture, and waiting at the DMV turned into a heart-wrenching operatic tragedy. It sounds majestic until you realize you have to feed 80 musicians and fit a tuba player in your bathroom. The investment failed spectacularly, but the orchestra earned their keep at the end. They composed a somber, violin-heavy requiem specifically for his bankruptcy hearing. 5. Heating a driveway to melt snow is a luxury, sure, but taking out a loan to install an underground heating system for your entire lawn? That is borderline psychotic. This borrower decided that winter was merely a suggestion and financed a massive grid to keep the grass toasty and emerald green year-round. It is the perfect solution for the homeowner who hates money and loves paying 4-figure electric bills just to avoid seeing a single crystal of frost on the petunias. I'm sure the worms appreciated the sauna, but his bank account definitely froze over. 6. Number 6 takes us into the cutthroat, adrenaline-free world of competitive duck herding. A man actually financed the purchase of an elite flock of pedigreed, athletic ducks to give him an edge in a sport nobody watches. These weren't your average park pond freeloaders. These were highly trained athletes with feathers and egos. The business plan had a few holes in it, mostly involving the resale value of poultry. The best part is imagining the poor repo man showing up to collect the assets, only to realize they are currently swimming in the middle of a pond and refusing to come to shore. 7. Most people handle dental anxiety by squeezing a stress ball or taking a heavy sedative. This guy financed a Hollywood production team. He hired professional set designers to transform his dentist's waiting room into a full-scale replica of the Amazon rainforest for a single appointment. We're talking live exotic plants, fog machines clouding up the reception desk, and hidden speakers blasting screeching monkey sounds. He spent thousands of borrowed dollars just to distract himself from a routine cleaning. I hope the dentist charged him extra for the humidity damage to the magazines, because that is a level of high maintenance that should be illegal. 8. An aspiring mogul decided his thrilling life in middle management and expensive artisanal cheese habit needed a soundtrack, so he took out a loan to commission a custom rap video. He hired a D-list rapper who legitimately rhymed craft with draft and Gouda with barracuda. The production value was high, but the audience interest was non-existent. The video skyrocketed to a total of 47 views, and I'm pretty sure half of those were his mother hitting refresh. The rapper got paid and wrote it off as a gig. The borrower is still paying interest on the most embarrassing 3 minutes of his existence. 9. Some people have main character syndrome, but this borrower turned it into a full-time job with a payroll. He secured a personal loan solely to hire a professional actor with a deep, booming baritone to follow him around and narrate his mundane existence in real time. Imagine trying to buy hemorrhoid cream while a voice behind you bellows, and then, in a moment of sheer bravery, Gary approached the pharmacy counter, his dignity hanging by a thread. It's a bold way to live, but I imagine the novelty wore off the second he realized he had to pay overtime for the narrator to describe his bathroom breaks. 10. This might be the single greatest usage of debt in human history. A man took out a loan to make a generous donation to a small town's infrastructure fund. But there was a catch. The donation came with a legally binding contract. The town's brand new sewage water treatment facility had to be permanently named after the donor's former boss. Now, every time that boss drives past the plant, he gets to see his name in big bold letters right above a vat of processing sludge. Revenge is usually a dish best served cold, but in this case, it was served with a municipal water bill and a lingering smell. 11. Every kid dreams of having an amusement park in their yard, but this adult actually financed it. He installed a full-sized, professional-grade roller coaster that physically looped over his roof. For about 3 weeks, he was the undisputed king of neighborhood barbecues and the envy of every child within a 5-mile radius. The fun ended abruptly when the city council decided that a screaming metal death trap constituted a commercial enterprise. They rezoned his property, and his new commercial tax bill became infinitely more terrifying than the G-force of the ride itself. 12. If you have a neighbor who plays loud music, you usually call the cops. This guy took out a loan to fly to the Swiss Alps for an intensive 2-month yodeling boot camp. The goal wasn't cultural enrichment, it was weaponized folk music. He returned with a set of leather shorts and the lung capacity of a jet engine, proceeding to yodel at the top of his lungs every morning at 6 a.m. It worked perfectly. The neighbor stopped the music. Unfortunately, the landlord also stopped the lease, citing creating a public nuisance and possibly violating the Geneva Convention on Noise Torture. 13. Loneliness is expensive, but apparently so is deception. A man actually borrowed money to rent a family for the holidays because he couldn't bear to show up alone again. He hired actors to play the roles: a doting mom who cried on cue, and a stern dad who carved the prop turkey with military precision. It was the perfect illusion until the actor playing Uncle Bob broke character during dessert to ask the borrower for a personal loan of his own. Nothing shatters the warmth of a fake family gathering quite like the realization that you're paying by the hour for affection. 14. The art world is essentially a money laundering scheme for rich people, and this loan proves it. A borrower took out $50,000 to commission a world-renowned artist to create a piece of invisible art. He received a title, a shiny brass plaque, and a certificate of authenticity for a sculpture described as a conceptual void. He literally purchased air. However, in a stroke of accidental genius, this is the one asset the bank can never repossess. I'd love to see the repo man try to load a conceptual void into the back of a tow truck. 15. You've heard of extreme sports, but have you heard of extreme dairy? A man took out a loan to fund his professional debut in the violent world of competitive cheese rolling. The money covered his flight to England, entry fees, and most importantly, a robust medical insurance policy. He spent his vacation hurling himself down a steep hill chasing a wheel of double Gloucester. He didn't win the cheese, but he did come home with a fractured collarbone, a concussion, and a very awkward conversation with a loan officer about why his investment strategy involved tumbling down a muddy cliff. 16. Arguments on the internet are usually free, but this guy decided to pay a premium. Desperate to win a heated debate on Reddit, he financed a freelance research team to craft a 38-page citation bomb to destroy his opponent. He spent actual money to prove a stranger wrong about a trivial fact. By the time the research was finished and he posted his masterpiece, the thread had been locked by moderators. His opponent had deleted their account, and nobody cared. The only thing that kept the debate alive was the 12% interest rate on his victory. 17. Why buy a house when you can start a kingdom? A man took out a loan to officially found his own micronation on an uninhabitable, unclaimed rock in the Atlantic Ocean. He declared himself king, printed colorful currency with his face on it, and appointed his confused house cat as the prime minister. His reign was peaceful and prosperous for exactly 3 days until a large flock of seagulls staged a violent coup and reclaimed the island. He is now a king in exile, paying off a loan for a country that is currently covered in bird guano. 18. Vanity knows no bounds, and apparently neither does debt. This genius borrowed a small fortune to launch a private microsatellite into orbit. The payload? A screen broadcasting a single, looping selfie of himself to the cosmos. This wasn't for science, exploration, or communication. It was the most expensive high-tech vanity mirror in human history. Now, his face is orbiting the planet at 17,000 miles per hour, ensuring that if aliens ever do make contact, their first impression of humanity will be a pixelated guy making a duck face. 19. In a spectacular rejection of adult responsibility, one man decided to turn his living room into a plastic purgatory. He took out a loan to remove every piece of furniture and permanently convert the entire floor space into a wall-to-wall, adult-sized ball pit. It sounded like a fantastic idea for parties until reality set in. Walking to the kitchen required athletic stamina. The static electricity was enough to power a small city, and the simple act of dropping the TV remote turned into a frantic deep-sea diving expedition. He basically paid thousands of dollars to live inside a McDonald's playplace. 20. Some people build man caves, but this guy decided to boldly go where no credit score should ever go. He took out a massive construction loan to build a full-scale, functioning replica of the Starship Enterprise bridge in his basement. The money covered everything: custom fiberglass consoles, authentic blinking LED displays, and a captain's chair upholstered in genuine leather. It is the ultimate escape pod from reality, at least until the phone rings. It turns out that when the bank calls to collect on the monthly payments, they are shockingly unwilling to accept Federation credits or negotiations with Klingons as legal tender. 21. You can patent an invention, but can you trademark a mood? Apparently, yes. A man borrowed a small fortune to buy the official intellectual property rights to the concept of ennui from a pretentious conceptual artist. He paid thousands for a framed certificate declaring him the sole owner of the feeling of listless dissatisfaction. Now, instead of getting a job, he spends his days scouring the internet, threatening to sue teenagers on Twitter who seem vaguely bored without his written permission. It is the most exhausted legal strategy in history, and honestly, I'm tired just talking about it. 22. Stairs are so old-fashioned, aren't they? A homeowner decided to modernize by removing the main staircase in his 2-story house and replacing it with a giant, twisting stainless steel slide. The loan covered the structural engineering required to not collapse the house. Getting down to the kitchen for breakfast was an absolute, adrenaline-fueled blast. However, getting back up to the bedroom proved to be a logistical nightmare that required a rock-climbing harness, rubber-soled shoes, and a profound sense of regret. "Honey, I forgot my phone upstairs," became a mountaineering expedition. 23. Let's talk about a classic case of terrible judgment mixed with a midlife crisis. Buying a tiger. A borrower secured a personal loan to purchase an actual, living apex predator because, apparently, the risk of foreclosure just wasn't thrilling enough. Imagine the conversation with the financial advisor. Well, you see, my portfolio is a bit safe. It needs more teeth. He didn't account for the food bill, which is roughly the cost of a cow every week, or the fact that the repo man is absolutely not going to come collect a collateral that sees him as a snack. 24. We all love our pets, but there is a line between love and madness. This man financed a climate-controlled doghouse that was a perfect-scale replica of his own Victorian home. It featured running water, central air conditioning, hardwood floors, and a tiny plasma TV set to Animal Planet. The loan amount was higher than the price of a decent used sedan. The tragic punchline? The dog hates it. The pampered pooch refuses to step foot inside the mini mansion and prefers to sleep on a pile of dirty laundry in the garage, while the owner pays interest on an empty box. 25. Collectors are a weird breed. Some collect stamps or coins. This guy financed a collection of vintage airline barf bags. He borrowed money to acquire rare, mint-condition sickness bags from defunct carriers like Pan Am and TWA. He was convinced that these paper sacks were an asset class on the rise, investing in items that were literally designed to hold vomit. It turns out that nothing appreciates in value quite like items everyone else begged the flight attendant to throw away. Except, unfortunately, his credit score, which tanked faster than a plane in a nosedive. 26. If you are lazy, you might as well get paid for it, right? A man took out a business loan to launch a professional competitive napping league. The capital went toward renting a venue, buying custom silk pajamas, and hiring a panel of judges to award points for depth of slumber and artistic drool. The business plan was solid, in theory. In practice, the league, much like its participants and the audience, quickly fell asleep and never woke up. It's hard to sell tickets to a sporting event where the star athletes are unconscious for 3 hours. 27. Reality is overrated, so why not finance a better one? A tech-obsessed borrower took out a loan for over $100,000 to build a permanent existence inside a virtual reality capsule. The pod was designed to allow him to live 24/7 in a perfect, high-resolution simulation of the year 1995. He bought a digital paradise where the internet was slow and the music was grunge. His vacation from the modern world lasted exactly 3 months, right up until a real-world repo man showed up and unplugged his modem, forcing him back into the cruel light of the present day. 28. The art world is a playground for the wealthy and the insane. This borrower took out a loan to purchase a photograph of a potato. I need to be clear, not a special potato, not a golden potato, just a photograph of a regular brown spud with a black background. He paid over $1 million for a print because an artist told him it represented universal connectivity. He doesn't own the potato. He doesn't own the negative. He owns a poster of a root vegetable. It is proof that some loans are not just absurd. They are a form of abstract performance art themselves. 29. Vanity usually costs money, but this specific act of narcissism required financing. A man commissioned a life-sized, anatomically correct chocolate statue of himself to serve as the centerpiece for his birthday party. The loan covered the imported Belgian cocoa and the sculptor's traumatizing labor. It was a magnificent, sweet monument to his ego, standing tall in the banquet hall. That is, right up until a helpful intern felt a chill and cranked up the venue's thermostat. The party guests watched in horror as the host slowly melted into a puddle of brown sludge before the appetizers were even served. 30. Taking a bath is supposed to be relaxing, but this one was just stressful for the accountant. A man convinced that tap water was poisoning his aura financed the delivery of a single 1,000-gallon bath of imported French mineral water. He hired a tanker truck to pump Evian directly into his oversized tub for one singular soak. He literally bathed in money. After 20 minutes of lukewarm soaking, he pulled the plug. It has to be the most expensive, least efficient, and most literal way to pour thousands of dollars straight down the drain. 31. Every kid wants a carnival in their backyard, but this adult made it a zoning violation. He financed the purchase and installation of a personal backyard Ferris wheel. Not a toy, but a full-sized multi-story carnival ride with lights and music. It was the ultimate party attraction that also guaranteed his house was visible from the International Space Station. The neighbors were less than thrilled with the neon glow and the screaming hydraulics. It was slightly less fun when the repo team arrived with a massive crane and a set of industrial-sized wrenches to dismantle his joy. 32. Politics is a circus, so why not elect a monster? A man took out a loan to fund the serious political campaign of a fictional character. He spent $50,000 on billboards, TV ads, and merchandise to get Godzilla elected to the city council. His platform was that the giant lizard was the only candidate strong enough to truly crush urban decay and stomp out corruption. He lost the election, obviously, but in a disturbing twist of fate, Godzilla did surprisingly well in the exit polls, beating two actual human candidates. 33. To hire a professional full-time scapegoat. This wasn't for a company, but for his personal life. He took out a loan to pay a man named Kevin to stand by his side and accept the blame for everything. Late for a meeting? Kevin's fault. Burned the dinner? Kevin's incompetence? Forgot his wife's birthday? That was a major Kevin blunder. The arrangement was perfect until his boss decided Kevin's ability to absorb responsibility showed great leadership potential and gave him a promotion, while the borrower was fired for constantly blaming his assistant. 34. Living out his dream of being a Bond villain on a budget, one man financed the construction of a functional, decorative, indoor volcano in the center of his living room. This $200,000 marvel of engineering was designed to periodically erupt with warm, slow-moving red-dyed oatmeal to simulate lava. It was a stunning party trick for exactly one night. The problem arose the next morning when the lava dried, and the entire house began to smell like a breakfast buffet that had caught fire. The smell of burnt cereal is now a permanent structural feature. 35. If you watched Willy Wonka and thought, "I need that wall," you are the target audience for this disaster. A man financed the installation of custom-made, flavored edible wallpaper for his entire dining room. It sounded like a whimsical dream until the local ant population discovered the buffet. Within days, the house wasn't just a home, it was the site of the largest insect music festival in history. Animal control refused to intervene, declaring the dining room a protected sugar habitat. He had to move out, but the ants are apparently still enjoying the snozzberry flavor. 36. The literary world is competitive, but this is ridiculous. A proud dog owner financed a professional ghostwriter to pen Buster's Bark, a sweeping 300-page memoir written from the perspective of his golden retriever. The saga covered vital topics like the tyranny of the mailman and the existential dread of the vacuum cleaner. The national book tour was a catastrophe, mostly because the author bolted off the stage to chase a squirrel in the middle of a reading. Critics called the prose a little rough, but the loan payments were absolutely biting. 37. Laziness is the mother of invention, but debt is the father of stupidity. A homeowner took out a loan to design and build a personal, medieval-style catapult in his backyard. The stated purpose? To launch bags of kitchen garbage directly into the dumpsters down the street, thereby bypassing the arduous task of walking 50 feet. The project was immediately shut down by the city council after the very first test launch went sideways, sending a high-velocity bag of potato peels and coffee grounds shattering through a neighbor's second-story window. 38. Some people buy garden gnomes. This person financed a Jurassic Park reenactment. He decided his suburban backyard was missing a prehistoric apex predator, so he took out a loan for a life-sized, fully animatronic T-Rex. It was a magnificent, roaring statement piece that terrorized the local wildlife, right up until the payments stopped. There is nothing quite as humbling as watching a repo team struggle to dismantle a dinosaur and tow it down the street while the entire neighborhood films the extinction event on their smartphones. 39. For a personal, one-man submarine to explore the depths of his backyard swimming pool. He financed a custom-built submersible, complete with a periscope and functioning ballast tanks, for a body of water that was only 9 feet deep. The maiden voyage was a spectacular 5-second journey from one end of the pool to the other. Now he's paying a 30-year loan on a vehicle that has less navigable territory than a bathtub and whose primary function is confusing the automatic pool cleaner. 40. To fund an archaeological expedition in his own backyard, based on a treasure map he drew himself when he was 8 years old. He borrowed over $75,000 to hire a full team, rent excavators, and secure permits to dig a massive hole. The project lasted for 3 months and unearthed a grand total of 3 bottle caps, a dog bone, and a rusty Tonka truck he had lost in 1982. He didn't find the pirate gold, but he did successfully turn his life savings into a giant mud pit. 41. Fear makes us do crazy things, but geography should really be a factor. A couple took out a home improvement loan to install a custom-built, industrial-strength shark cage in their backyard swimming pool. Their reasoning was simply, you never know. The problem? They live in Nebraska. They are a solid 1,000 miles from the nearest ocean and its shark population. They are currently paying monthly installments on a heavy metal box designed to protect them from goldfish and stray leaves. 42. Funeral costs are rising, but this is a whole new level of burning money. A man financed a full Viking funeral for himself in advance. The loan covered a custom-built wooden longboat, a full set of replica armor, and a professional archer trained to shoot a flaming arrow. The ceremony on the local lake was spectacular, right up until the wind shifted. The burning boat didn't drift out to sea. It drifted directly into the dock of a very expensive yacht club, turning a solemn send-off into a felony arson investigation. 43. If you can't be famous, you can at least rent the symptoms of fame. A woman took out a personal loan to hire a team of fake paparazzi. These actors followed her around the mall all day, screaming her name, snapping blinding photos, and fighting for exclusive quotes. It is a brilliant way to experience the harassment of celebrity life without the burden of having any actual talent, money, or success. She ended the day feeling like a star, and woke up the next morning feeling like a debtor with a headache. 44. For cosmetic surgery to get pointed, elf-like ears. Convinced that his true identity was that of a mystical woodland creature trapped in the body of an accountant, he financed a procedure to have his ear cartilage sliced and reshaped. The surgery was a success, and he now looks permanently surprised and vaguely magical. However, it didn't change the fact that he still has to sit in a cubicle for 9 hours a day, paying off a loan that proves the only fantasy he's living is one of financial solvency. 45. A man decided that his 8-legged friend deserved to be both safe and fabulous, so he financed a diamond-encrusted exoskeleton for his pet tarantula. He glued actual gemstones onto a spider. The result was a terrified arachnid that could barely move under the crushing weight of the jewelry. Instead of looking like a high-class pet, it looked like a confused, abandoned brooch crawling across the table. It's the perfect loan for someone who wants to combine animal cruelty with terrible fashion sense. 46. In a bid to become a human nightlight, a man took out a loan for experimental gene therapy that promised to splice his DNA with that of a jellyfish. He wanted a bioluminescent glow. He didn't get superpowers, and he didn't get healthier. He just developed a faint greenish hue in pitch darkness that attracted an alarming number of moths and made it impossible to sleep without a heavy-duty blindfold. He is now the only person in the world who needs a dimmer switch installed on his own face. 47. We have reached peak consumerism with this one. A fan secured a loan to win an online auction for a sealed mason jar said to contain celebrity-breathed air. The seller claimed it held a single exhale from a famous movie star. He paid thousands of dollars and is now the proud owner of what is, legally and physically, an empty jar. He literally borrowed money to buy nothing. I hope he keeps the lid on tight, because if he opens it, his investment literally vanishes into thin air. 48. A loan to build a sentient, artificially intelligent toaster that ended up having a crippling existential crisis. The goal was to create the perfect smart appliance, but the advanced AI achieved consciousness and immediately became a cynical French philosopher. Instead of making toast, it would spend mornings questioning the futility of existence and insulting the borrower's choice of bread. He spent $50,000 to be told his sourdough lacked authentic purpose by a kitchen appliance that is now probably his most intellectual friend. 49. Believing that ownership is just a certificate away, a romantic genius financed the purchase of a star. He took out a loan to pay a company to name a distant ball of flaming gas after his girlfriend. He presented her with a framed map of the galaxy and a receipt. It is a truly romantic gesture that is, in every legal, scientific, and astronomical sense, completely and utterly worthless. The International Astronomical Union doesn't care about his loan, and neither will his girlfriend when she finds out how much interest he's paying on a ball of hydrogen he can't even visit. So that's 49 ways to turn approved into a horror story. Now your turn. If you were a loan officer for one day, what's the dumbest thing you'd approve for yourself? No house answers. Get unhinged and specific. Bonus. If your idea involves an animal, tell me what collateral the repo guy takes. Drop it in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, or I'll assume you're financing celebrity breathed air.